I'm the president, I'm at the top of this, but I trust people to do things without bringing it all the time to me. And what I then followed for the rest of my career as I became in more senior positions was get the best people I could. People I could trust, but more importantly, people who trusted me. So that we could work together. So we could bond together in the sense of purpose, where we are all connected for a common purpose. And we have a vision to get to that purpose. We have missions and goals, but it's always the vision and the purpose that counts. And that's what he was saying to me. Always empower. And empowering means taking risks. I usually knew more than my subordinates with respect to the overall situation we're dealing with, but I had to give them a zone of operation where they can make decisions within this zone, and I would accept those decisions and support them. They would know when, I better take this one to the old man. Or if they have made a mistake within that zone, we'll work it out, we'll get through it. I'm not going to hang you because you made a mistake. This is your zone of operation. And you have to do that with human beings so that they can feel that they are important within an organization. That they're not just widgets or tools sitting on the factory floor waiting to be told what to do and to make no judgments, to take no initiative. And so as you think through across the world listening to this, how you organize yourselves, how you grow your communities, how you grow your congregations, how you grow your programs to serve your community, you have to empower subordinates. And you have to trust them. And you have to make sure that you are acting in a way that causes them to trust you. Because trust is the glue that will hold an organization together and the lubricant that will keep it moving forward. Now, just to conclude the President Reagan story, I don't want anybody to have the illusions that maybe he, wasn't there anymore. He was absolutely there. The end of this chapter in my book is another meeting a few weeks later. And this meeting is about the fact that the Japanese back then in 1988 were buying everything. They were in a roll. They bought Rockefeller Center, they bought the Pebble Beach Resort golf course. They were buying everything. And the cabinet insisted they had to see President Reagan right away. And so they marched in, Treasury, Commerce, Defense, State, and they started berating the president. And he knew this was his problem, not mine. I just sat there singing. All yours, Skipper. And they started just lecturing the president about the Congress is mad, the people are mad, and we've got to do something about the Japanese. President Reagan listened very, very carefully. Asked a couple of questions. And then finally he just looked back at them and he said, well, I'm glad they think America's a good investment. Meeting was over. While they were worrying about these little issues, Reagan, the great leader that he was, this was what makes a great leader. He had a vision and a sense of purpose of what we were all about. A great nation that is open to the rest of the world, a great nation that believes in itself, a great nation that is self-confident, a president that is self-confident. He had simple themes constantly repeated. That's what leaders do. Have themes that people understand, visions and purposes that people understand, and constantly refresh them and repeat them so that they infect the entire organization and everybody knows what it is we're trying to do. That's what made him great. So if you want to be a great leader, take care of your troops, which is what they taught us in the Army. If you want to make sure that you're going to keep moving forward, have a destination. Remember that it is execution that is the most important part of leadership, not just planning, but execution. And constantly reviewing how you're doing. People say, failure is not an option. Oh, yes, it is, every time. Excuse me. The great leaders are those who understand that and are always ready to deal with that kind of failure. And so it's a great pleasure for me to start this conversation alone, and now Bill is going to join me and share other thoughts with you. But I just want to close by saying what an absolute joy it is to be with you today and to share these thoughts with all who are watching around the world. And I want to especially express my thanks to Pastor Bill and the whole staff here and the whole congregation here for all they are doing to achieve the purpose of making this not only a better community, but a better world. Thank you.
Really, thank you so much. Hey, last time we were together, we met in Washington, D.C. We had a wonderful time. And immediately afterwards, you had to go over to the Vietnam Memorial out there on the lawn in D.C. And you, for whatever reason, invited me to join you. So we got in your car, we went over there. The lingering memory that I have of that is something I've always wanted to ask you about. We haven't had the opportunity since. All kinds of wounded soldiers recognized you at the memorial there. They came up in their wheelchairs and crutches and so. Being a pastor, I thought you were going to say to these wounded soldiers, oh, you know, I am so sorry. How can I pray for you? Or, you know, whatever us pastors always say. You took an entirely different approach, and I thought maybe I misheard it the first time, but you did this with several soldiers. And you acknowledged them, you shook their hands, and then you said, were you a good soldier? And that like took my breath away, that you would start the conversation, that was important for you. What was going on in your mind?
It's a rhetorical question. I know what the answer is going to be. Yes, sir, I was a good soldier. Soldiers want to talk about their experience. And I've been through Walter Reed many times visiting with soldiers. And they're not looking for sympathy. They're not looking for someone to say, I'm sorry. They want their service recognized and respected. You know, I've been to a hospital and seen a young soldier laying in bed missing 3 of his 4 limbs. And the only thing he wanted to do was to get well and maybe he can get enough prosthetic devices so he could go back to his unit. He wants to get back with his troops. He wants to get back with his buddies. These youngsters will do anything for their buddies. And so, rather than commiserate, I wanted to thank them for their service, and at the same time, let them tell me what unit they were in.
Yeah, and
where is it like? Where did you serve?
Yeah, where did you serve? You said that.
How did you get hit?
Yeah.
They want to share that with you. And when it's all over, I don't say sorry, never say sorry. I'm obviously devastated that they've been injured. But what I say to them is, I know it had to be tough. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Yeah. They want to be recognized as soldiers who serve the country well and serve their buddies.
That was quite an experience for me. I want to ask you what could be quite a controversial question. Just beneath the veneer of American society and just beneath the veneer of a lot of societies is this lurking hostility of racism. And here you ascended to one of the highest offices in the world. Were you ever a part of any racial discrimination? Did you feel you had to overcome some kind of minority status to be able to achieve what you achieved?
Yes, but I was also fortunate in that I came along as the nation really was making historic changes. I entered the Army in 1954. Segregation was still the rule once you went south of the Jersey Turnpike. You know, going to Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort Benning was great, but Columbus, Georgia then was a segregated city. We were denied voting rights as African Americans. But I came along in 1958 into one of the most socially progressive organizations in America, and that was the military. We realized that this was wrong. Just as you said in your earlier presentation, you recognize something is wrong and you start to fix it. And also, as a practical matter, a segregated army made no sense. And Truman had signed the desegregation bill, which took years, or executive order, which took years to implement. And so you can sign an executive order, but it still lingers. I'm sure that throughout my career, people looked at me and sometimes they saw an officer and sometimes they just saw a black guy. And it continued, I think, for most of my career. I was selected to be a brigade commander in the 101st Airborne Division, a great division, back in the mid-70s. And one of my buddies, a West Point friend of mine, said, hey, you should hear the guys talking. They wonder why you got selected. And they think you got selected because you were black and they needed a black commander, and this is some kind of affirmative action. Yeah, makes me mad. I said, hey, don't worry about it. It's their problem, not mine. And what they're going to have to see is, am I a good brigade commander? If I'm a good brigade commander, I don't care how I got it. The important thing is that I did the best I could with the opportunity I had. And I'm being given an opportunity that 300 years of African-American military experience did not provide for anybody who came before me. And so my job is to take advantage of the opportunity. But I think the country has changed enormously. President is African-American, corporate leaders, congressmen, every aspect of American life, you can see it. But at the same time, we've got a long way to go. We still have minorities in our country, African-American, Hispanic-American, and Native American, who are not yet benefiting from the success that this country enjoys. So as we move forward, let's not leave anybody behind. As we move forward and congratulate us for our success, what I say to all my audience is, remember that you have an obligation to reach down, reach back, reach across, and help somebody else cross that hurdle and move on up.